Welcome to this Autistic Sales video where we explore meltdowns, shutdowns and burnout from the perspective of an autistic person with dissociative identity disorder. We will explore what meltdowns, shutdowns and burnouts are, why they happen, and what things we find helpful when we experience these states. As an autistic system, much of what we describe will be relevant to all autistic people. However, meltdowns, shutdowns and burnout are different for us and more complicated to understand because we are also a system. So we experience dissociation and can switch between alters when we are distressed. An autistic system describes a group of personas or alters who share one body, with most of us being autistic. This is described in more detail in other videos on our Autistic Selves YouTube channel. Here are our definitions, starting with what is an autistic meltdown. We define an autistic meltdown as the loss of control of our thoughts, emotions and behaviour. How do we define an autistic shutdown? We define an autistic shutdown as a state where we are unable to think or move. Our processing slows down and we are unaware of the outside world. How do we define an autistic burnout? We define autistic burnout as being unable to cope following the long-term denial of our needs, where we pretend we are coping even though we aren't. We end up fatigued and unable to function. So what happens when we have a meltdown? When we have a meltdown, we scream, cry and shout. We release the energy from our emotions. Afterwards, we feel exhausted and take several hours to recover. What happens when we have a shutdown? When we shut down, our whole body becomes heavy and fatigued. Everything slows down, including our thoughts and our ability to process the world around us. What happens when we experience burnout? For us, burnout lasts for years. We are unable to engage with the world and find it hard to care about anything. Our alter, Sarah, has been burnt out for many years. She is burnt out from trying to hold down a job. She became chronically exhausted from trying to appear neurotypical but never being able to achieve this. What is the difference between meltdown, shutdown and burnout? For us, burnout is a long-term reaction that builds up over time and takes a long time to recover from. All meltdowns are usually an explosive release of emotion that only lasts a few minutes, although they can last longer if people don't give us the space we need to calm down. When we shut down, we are unable to move or talk until we recover. It starts more slowly than with a meltdown and lasts several hours. Why is it important to consider what is happening inside a person and not just consider a person's behaviour? It is easy for others to misunderstand us if they just consider our behaviour and not at what we are thinking and feeling. Like many autistic people, we tend to mask, so how we look isn't always how we actually are. Meltdowns often look like anger. Shutdowns and burnout often look like depression. However, it is more complex than this. All are really a response to being overwhelmed, to our senses and emotions becoming too much for us to cope with. Sadness, confusion, fear, worry, guilt, stress, upset, anger. What causes a meltdown? Our meltdowns are usually caused because we are overwhelmed. Most of our meltdowns are caused by our brain and body receiving too much sensory input. We can also become overwhelmed with too many emotions. What causes a shutdown? As with meltdowns, most of our shutdowns are usually caused by sensory or emotional overwhelm. If we do not feel safe to have a meltdown, a shutdown is typically our attempt to mask a meltdown that we can't stop. We also have shutdowns when we feel there are too many demands on us. When we cannot cope with too many demands, we typically lose our ability to talk and will become mute. What causes burnout? Burnout is something that happens to us over a long period of time. Typically, if we try to remain in a situation that is too much for us to cope with, we will end up burnt out. Our alter, Sarah, is in a state of burnout from when she tried to mask and appear neurotypical when she was working. 2 decades later, she is still burnt out and unable to work. Part 2. How to help. What do we do to help ourselves when we have a meltdown or shutdown or are burnt out? We need quiet time on our own so that we can recover. We like to do art, stroke our cats, or read a book. What can other people do to help us? Give us space on our own to allow our nervous system to re-regulate, but give us reassurance too, so we can feel safe and know that you care and are available if we want you. Are there things that make us worse and that people should avoid doing? Please don't get too close to us and definitely don't touch us. Other than gentle reassurance that we are okay, talking to us and demanding interaction will make us worse. Please don't judge us or label our behaviour as bad. Our nervous system is overloaded. We aren't trying to be rude or manipulative, so please don't take our behaviour personally or ask for an apology for something that isn't our fault. What can be done to reduce the frequency of meltdowns, shutdowns and burnouts? Reflecting on why we have become overwhelmed helps us to better manage our life and stay regulated more often. The main thing that has helped us is understanding what situations are difficult for us and why. Mostly we have found that we can stay regulated when we have low levels of stress and demands. When we have to be in situations we find difficult, it's important to plan rest time both before and afterwards to give our nervous system time to prepare and recover. Trying to hide who we really are and behave how we think we should behave is exhausting and makes it more likely we will have a meltdown or shutdown or end up burnt out. Noticing when we are masking and giving ourselves permission to unmask and be ourselves is empowering for us and helps prevent meltdowns, shutdowns and burnout. How does our diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder impact on our meltdowns, shutdowns and burnout? Being able to switch between different parts can be helpful in preventing us becoming overwhelmed. For example, we can select and choose the most appropriate alter for any given situation and so cope better. However, our meltdowns and shutdowns can also transform into dissociation. Dissociation is a stress response. We feel we leave our body and are looking at ourselves from far away. What is the difference between an autistic shutdown and dissociation? With both autistic shutdown and dissociation, our body feels heavy and fatigued, and we find it difficult to process incoming information from the world. However, when we are dissociated, our perception of the world changes. For example, we will feel the room is rocking and we'll feel that we are floating. With autistic shutdown, our perception of the world remains the same. We do not feel the room rocking and we don't feel ourselves floating or leaving our body. Thank you for watching this autistic sales video on meltdowns, shutdowns and burnout from the perspective of an autistic person with dissociative identity disorder. If you have enjoyed our video, then please subscribe to our channel and follow us on our other social media accounts.